Hi, I'm immigration lawyer John Kasravi, and today I want to talk about a question I get asked about all the time, which is how long it takes before being able to file for U.S. citizenship, meaning you got a green card and now you want to become a U.S. citizen. How long does it take? When can you do that? What if you have gaps and you traveled in between? What if you move to a different state? All these different types of questions that regard timelines and when you're supposed to be somewhere at a certain time, we're going to get into that in detail in this video. Thanks again for joining us. If you haven't already, please click that like button, click on that subscribe button, and ring that bell to get updates. We send these all the time, these types of videos and information. It'll help you out a lot. But let's just jump into it and start talking about U.S. citizenship. So the first thing I want to mention is U.S. citizenship is different from having a green card. Some people mix up and use these words interchangeably. You have to have a green card first. After you've had a green card for a set amount of time, then you could file for U.S. citizenship as long as you satisfy all these other requirements too. Today we're focusing only on the timeline requirements. There's other stuff. You can look at the instructions for Form N-400. There's a lot of information there, and the policy manual, and we'll discuss a little bit about that policy manual in a second. But before we start, I also want to mention we're not going to get into the faster way of getting it if you're married to a U.S. citizen, or about military citizenship. We're going to focus on what the vast majority of people do when they want to file for citizenship, which is the 5-year process, having a green card for at least 5 years before they can file for citizenship. So all the timelines and references I make will be based on that version of it that hits most people, affects most people. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention about filing for citizenship is you have to be living in the state that you're living in for at least 3 months before you can file for citizenship. This is because they don't want you to do what's called forum shopping. Try to move to another state and immediately file for citizenship to maybe get it faster, because the timelines for getting citizenship vary drastically depending on which office you're filing at. And it really depends on how busy that USCIS office is and how they're handling your case. So it's very hard to say how long the case will take. It's very inconsistent, and you can't really rely upon what they say at the website like USCIS.gov and that kind of stuff of how long it is. It could be 3 or 4 months. If there's no issues, it could be more than a year. I've seen both happen at the same office. But you do have to be living in one state for 3 months before you can file for citizenship. If you do it sooner, they'll take the money, give you a receipt, and then deny it later for lack of jurisdiction. So it's very important to consider. Now the second thing that comes up is how early can you file? You have to wait at least 5 years for filing, but they give a small exception. 90 days before the 5-year mark of having your green card status, being a lawful permanent resident, you can start the process from N-400 for citizenship. They can't approve the case until a full 5 years have passed, but you could file the case 90 days beforehand. It's very important to note that it's 90 days before the 5-year mark, not 3 months. It's very specific. And USCIS.gov even has a website. If you just go to Google and type in, naturalization 90-day calculator, it'll go to the page within USCIS.gov where you put the date, which will be the 5-year mark for your green card, and it'll give you automatically what 90 days before that is. So you really want to check that and not file it too early, because that again could cause you to submit the case, pay the fee, get a receipt, and then a year later get a denial for filing too early. So be very cautious of that. Those are 2 quick notes I wanted to make before going to more complex stuff, the big questions. Now, the next thing that comes up is how long do I have to be in the United States? Well, they say half the time of 5 years that you're supposed to have. So let's look at it this way. You have to have 5 years at least as a green card holder. Half of that time you have to physically be in the United States. So you look at the 5-year mark, half of that, what is it? They consider that to be 913 days. So you have to physically be in the United States for 913 days in the last 5 years before you can file for citizenship, or else they will deny the case. So that's what a physical presence requirement, that's what they call a physical presence requirement. Now, if you're doing that 90-day early filing and you have not satisfied the 913 days, they will deny the case. So you want to make sure that you have the full 913 days before filing for citizenship, before submitting the application. Now, I'm going to go to the more hardcore part now, which is the idea of continuous residence. This is the problem. This is the problematic part for most people who have issues with it, and it's a complicated issue and it comes up a lot. So let's talk about it again. It's continuous presence. So when you file a when you file a citizenship application, Form N-400, there is a look back period of 5 years that they look for. So when we talked earlier about the physical presence requirement, they look back 5 years from the date of filing and see if you've been in the United States 913 days. But if you're looking at continuous residence, the idea is that you're continuously living in the United States without any gaps. Because the reality is, when you're a green card holder, you're supposed to be maintaining a residence in the United States. You have to be living here. So you usually have work, you have a home, you have a car, you have insurance, you have bank accounts, spending that you do, going to school, your kids are going to school, your spouse is working, all the kind of stuff you'd imagine a person in America would do, you should be doing, and not living outside the United States. Because if you're living outside the United States, that gives them the ability to deny your case. And how do they find out if you're living outside the United States? Well, they look in that 5-year period, and they look at 3 different things. One, did you have an absence of more than 1 year from the United States? That will automatically cause your citizenship case to be denied. That's it. Secondly, they'll look if you have absence, at least one absence, of more than 6 months but less than 1 year. If you have that, they won't automatically deny your case. They'll give you the opportunity to show them with documents that in reality you were living in the United States, but for some reason you're out between 6 months or more than 6 months and 1 year. So you'd have to come back with lease agreements, car loans, or whatever it is, work, or anything you could show that you have ties to the United States, and be able to explain that the absence you have from the United States was just a one-time thing, or was something that just popped up, but you didn't abandon your residence here, you didn't let it go, you're continuously still residing here. Then it's up to the discretion of the officer whether they're going to prove that. Now the third thing is if you have multiple absences of less than 6 months, when you're thinking about 4 or 5 months. So imagine you're outside the United States for 4 or 5 months, you come back again, you stay 1, 2 months, and then you leave again for 4 or 5 months. Well, that begins to look like, hey, are you actually living here? Because you're constantly outside the United States. And they have your full travel history, they know it. You have to submit your travel history dates in the application, but they internally have all those dates from CBP, the border inspector. They keep track of all that. The airlines let them know when you're leaving as well. So you have to be honest with them. Please do not lie about these days. Please don't make it up. They know. They'll accuse you of misrepresentation or fraud. You don't want to get hit by that. But if you have multiple absences of 4 or 5 months, that opens it up for them to be able to deny the case, and you will have to be able to document and show evidence or explain that those were temporary absences, that you had continuous residence in the United States. So now that's how it basically is, and a lot of cases get denied over this issue. Now imagine this. You're outside the United States for more than 1 year, but you come back and you are living in the United States continuously, not even having any trips at all. Well, can you still file for citizenship? Yes and no. I'm going to go before Trump and after Trump, almost as if before Christ and after Christ. Before Trump, the policy was this. If you were outside the United States for more than 1 year, once you come back in, you could wait 4 years and 1 day and then refile a case for citizenship, or just file the case for citizenship, and they'll overlook that. However, the policy changed dramatically. First, the Trump administration started issuing policies in the policy manual. This is an internal document that we have access to on the internet. You can find it, the USCIS policy manual. And they broke it down. They said, if you wait 4 years and 1 day from your last entry to file for citizenship, they could still deny it because there's a 6 months to a year gap there that you were outside the United States. So you have to prove that in that 6 month and 1 year you were not living outside here, you were continuously residing in the United States. So internally in my office, I created a 4 year, 6 month and 1 day rule to push that all out of the way, or better yet, just wait a whole 5 years before filing for citizenship to push out all that absence history out of the 5 year period that they focus on. So we were doing that. But unfortunately, there was another kicker that came in late 2020 where there was another policy update where they said this. If a person, since the time they got their green card, had absences that were problematic, like let's say they're outside for more than 1 year, and they came back to the United States and they lived here continuously for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, at the time of citizenship, they could review your whole history, not just looking back the last 5 years, which was the general policy they had before, but they would look back through your entire green card period. And if they saw an absence was there, they could deny your case, and then secondly, try to take your green card away and send you to immigration court with a notice to appear, NTA, saying go to immigration court, so a judge could officially take your green card away and then remove you, deport you from the United States. It's a very dramatic gesture to do. It's very scary. It had always been the policy. They had the legal authority to do this, and we always knew that it's there. But the practical policy was what actually happened in cases is if you did have an absence for more than 1 year, and the Border Protection, CBP, allowed you to enter the United States they would overlook that, not focus on it, as long as within the last 5 years you were continuously in the United States. So the immigration lawyers would typically file these and have approvals all the time. But then November 30th, 2020, when this policy manual update happened, it became a shock, because we're like, well, we have clients that have been here continuously that had no trips for 15 years, but maybe 20 years ago they're out for more than 1 year for some reason, and they don't have the paperwork to show they're really residing here, but they went outside, a medical condition happened, they broke their foot, they couldn't get on a plane for some reason, whatever it is, and they don't have that documentation to be able to defend themselves in the situation. Should they file for citizenship? So this answer, while I'm recording this in January 2021, is no, hold off on filing in that situation until we have clarity. You could keep up on the JK Law Firm YouTube videos, consult with an immigration attorney when you want to apply, just see what's going on when you're watching this recording. But as of now, my estimate, my reservations and my guidance is to not file if you have these kind of absences, because the policy is, and they specifically put it in the policy manual, that even if CBP, the Port Authority, lets you in the airport or land border, even though you had more than 1 year's absence, we're not going to take them at their word. We're going to look at the USCIS naturalization interview. If you ever had an absence that was inappropriate, it was too long, then we could deny the citizenship case and send you to court to take away your green card. It's crazy, it's wild. I'm sure there are going to be lawsuits about this to try to adjust this. Please contact your congressperson to see if they can help push the new governments and the new regime, new president, to kind of switch this up. But it's something very important I want you to be aware of, and to not file these cases, because this risk does exist. So I'm glad I was able to get that information out there. I hope you watched until this far to hear that. And I guess I'll go through one more thing as a question that comes up. What if you filed the case and you want to travel? Well, it's no problem. After you do file a citizenship case, you are allowed to travel, but the same rules apply where you can't be outside for too long. So let's say you file the case and you go on a 2-month, 3-month vacation. Yeah, that's cool, no problem. But you don't want to be outside for more than 6 months or even 5 months maybe. You got to maintain that residence in the United States and not make it look like, or in fact be, that you are living outside the United States. You got to maintain that residence here. It's very hard for a lot of people for whatever reason, but the whole goal of having a green card is living within the United States. And then for citizenship, they're going to look at that in detail if you've been living here. Now, there's a bunch of other stuff with regards to citizenship. You got to have, good taxes, good moral character, all these other things. But the focus today was just on the aspects of timelines with regards to immigration and citizenship. And the reality is, how long will this case take to decide? It's different for every case. So you got to check to see what your local office is doing. But even then, it's not consistent. You can't rely on what's on the website. You just have to be patient. I hope that information helped you a lot. If you haven't already, please click subscribe. And to schedule a consultation with my office, please email me at info@jqqlaw.com. That's info@jqqlaw.com. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed this educational video. We have a second channel with much more information as well at JQK Immigration Clips. Please check that out. Also, you'll find our social media site has a lot more videos, images, and information about the U.S. immigration process. Please check those out on the various social media websites.